right, we'll just give it another minute here. Hello and welcome. We're just going to give it a moment here for more folks to join. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Hello, everyone. I'm Toby Anderson, and I'm the head of customer experience for SpeakApp. If you're not familiar with SpeakApp, we are a platform really focused on reaching those frontline workers. You're the key, crucial employees for construction, hospitality, retail, manufacturing, logistics. And honestly, it's such an important group to get to connect with, to communicate with. And that's why I'm thrilled to be having Victoria join us today from Dew Communications, because really the work that she does, her expertise is tremendous. And not only that, she's going to be sharing some findings from direct research in this group of frontline workers. So really valuable information here today. So I'm so excited for our chat. And I want to just take one moment to, welcome everybody who's joined. We welcome you to introduce yourself in the chat if you'd like, tell us where you're joining from. But during the session, if you have questions, we have a questions tab. Please pop those in and we'll be prompting you to, ask your questions. But I know, sometimes it's best to just put those in as you have them so you don't forget. We will save some time at the end for Q&A as well. So without further ado, I will ask Victoria to get us started.
Oh, Toby, thank you so much. And thank you so much, SpeakApp, for having me. It's a pleasure to be with all of you and to be able to share our research and some of these best kept secrets and real world strategies for how companies can better connect and communicate with their frontline workers. As Toby was saying, this is such an important population and such an important segment of our workforce. So we're going to dive in and I'll explain a little bit about some other research that we've done, some of why this is so important and such an important problem to solve. And then, as I mentioned, some just really practical strategies for where you can get started in your organization to improve the way that you're connecting with them. So first, I will just by way of introduction, I will just tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do so that you know why we thought this research was so important to do. As Toby mentioned, my name is Victoria Dew. I'm the CEO of a company called Dewpoint Communications. We are the experts that future-ready organizations call on for world-class internal comms and employee experience support. We have actually been I founded this company in 2017, which is crazy to me. Since then, our work has impacted more than 600,000 employees around the world. We've had the privilege of supporting some of the largest brands on the planet that you'll see here, folks like Dell and Toyota, McDonald's, eBay, as well as nonprofits, government, high-growth startups, middle market. So no matter where you're joining us from today, no matter what kind of business organization you are in and that you support, I promise you, we have seen businesses like yours, companies like yours, teams like yours. And so really pleased to have you with us and to be able to share some of this with you. I'll also mention that as our clients and our team are global. So I am actually based in Boston, where I'm sitting today. We have team in the UK, around the US, and in Canada, with a second hub in Victoria, British Columbia, where we have some of our key team members. We're industry agnostic. So while we're going to be talking today about the frontline workforce, I'm actually going to share a little bit about why we think that cracking what we call the frontline code is actually so key to improving the way we communicate with everyone in our workforce and all of our employees, whether they're sitting behind a desk or out on a shop floor or retail floor working with patients, customers. Um, so we've worked with more than 20 industries and sectors. And so again, no matter where you're joining us from, no matter what your business is, I guarantee you we've seen it before, and really love helping and supporting businesses of all sizes and different industries. So I'll share my contact information at the end, but of course, we always welcome folks to reach out to us if they have additional questions, or if there's a way that we may be able to support them now or in the future. Before we get into our research, I want to say that thought leadership is something that we take really seriously at Dewpoint Communications. So we publish regular research like the report we're here to talk about today. I do a lot of speaking, training, facilitating, and we are really focused on this intersection between strategic internal communication, employee experience, and the future of work. And so as we get into this, you'll really see that when we're looking, we're not looking at just at the tactics of how we improve communication, but why it's so important and why it is such an impact on the business as well. So I wanted to share a little bit about our time together today and what I hope you'll learn from the session. I can't see the chat as I'm speaking, but I'll keep an eye on it a little bit later. I know Toby will maybe just grab me if there's a really urgent question that I can respond to right away. I'll also share there's a QR code at the bottom of the screen. You're welcome to download the current report. I will say, and I believe we've been in the process of updating this research and conducting a whole new tranche of interviews over the past few months. We're pulling all that together at the moment to create a companion brief that will give that kind of like just-in-time 2026 perspective on this work as well. So I hope you'll grab the report that we're going to be focusing on today with some updated pieces there, and then receive that updated report when it's ready. So we're going to start. I'm going to share a little bit about the true cost of frontline disconnect, why this is such an important problem to solve, talk a little bit about where most companies are currently getting it wrong, why what we're doing just is not working, why we're not meeting the moment, why we're not meeting people where they are. We'll also share a little bit about what's possible for our organizations, for our teams, and for these workers when we're able to fix these issues. I'm going to share some actionable strategies that you can put into use right away. My hope is that there is at least just one gem, one kernel, an idea, something that you can take today from our webinar and be able to bring back to your team right away. We'll also, as Toby said, have time to talk about some next steps, questions, and answers. So let's start by talking about why this is such a very important problem to solve. You know, frontline workers are actually just a massive economic engine. They mean a lot to our economy, and I'm going to share a little bit about what that looks like and some very recent stats on this. But somehow, as many of us know, communicating with them and engaging with them effectively has always fallen in the too hard basket. And there's some very good practical reasons for this historically. They're out there working with our customers. They're out there working with our patients. They're on the retail floor. In the past, they haven't been enabled. We haven't been able to reach them through our apps, through our intranet, through technology. Maybe they don't have an email address. Maybe they're swinging a hammer on the top of a building, and really shouldn't be checking their phone, right? So we've always had this idea that somehow frontline workers were hard to reach and it was just too hard, couldn't be done. And I want to challenge some of those assumptions today and really call on everyone to take another look at this problem. And I'll talk about why this is so important to solve as well. So one of the reasons, as I mentioned, and we won't go into these stats in too much detail, but frontline workers comprise nearly 80% of the global workforce. That is a lot of people who are doing a lot of work and contributing a huge amount to the global economy. You look at some of these numbers, and these are just US numbers, what these workers and what these jobs, people in these roles are contributing to the GDP of certainly the US economy. I know we have people from all over the world here, but when you extrapolate this, right, you can see that this is pretty significant. We also know that the demand for these workers is increasing, and especially in critical industries, especially in for skilled trades, right? So HVAC, we'll touch on a little bit about that, but that is when you think about data centers alone, you can see there's a massive demand for skilled HVAC workers. Certainly home healthcare is, I believe, the fastest growing sector of new roles in the US as we have an aging population, right? This is some new kind of data I wanted to share, right? Because businesses, big businesses, companies like Bloomberg, BlackRock, Google, Carhartt, Ford, they know that this is a big challenge. They're desperate for skilled trades in nearly every industry, and so just this week, they're investing a huge amount in training the next generation of skilled workers. And in fact, just this week, BlackRock, Carhartt, Ford Motor Company, and Google announced the launch of the Alliance for America's Skilled Trades. And this is an initiative aimed at expanding access to skilled trades across the US, and is committed to these workforce training programs because they project that there will be 2.1 million skilled trade positions that could remain unfilled by 2030, including electrical workers, technicians, and builders, if we don't have the people coming into these trades. So you can see we need these people. These are not jobs that robots are replacing right away. We need them and quickly, and they and to make sure that they not only want to come work with us, but they want to stay working with us. Now that is, of course, easier said than done. And this is why this is such a critical piece and such an important opportunity for communication professionals to contribute. Because as we say, like the maths here, this is a problem worth fixing. We know that when we get frontline engagement wrong, it hurts the bottom line, and that 72% of frontline workers, they don't understand the company strategy. They can't implement key measures. So I want you to imagine that you have a massive change program or a business transformation, and the people who are responsible for really implementing that just don't understand it, aren't able, or aren't engaged enough to take those actions. That's a massive business problem, isn't it? The benefits of improving frontline worker communication are huge. Think about all those skilled trades coming into new workers coming into the workforce. We're going through these very expensive training programs for skilled trades. 82% of them would tell you that they would plan on staying with the company if they were able to rate the way they were communicated with as excellent. So 82% of employees who rate communication as excellent plan to stay with their company. So again, when we reverse engineer this back to the skilled trades workforce shortage, you see that starts to make a lot of mathematics sense. What we're doing currently is not working. So 42% of frontline workers say that their company is just bad at communicating with them. And I see some thumbs coming up on the screen. And so I have a feeling that this is very familiar to all of you. Before we dive into our strategies, I wanted to give you, and to tell you a little bit more about our research, I wanted to give you just a few clues for how you know, and some of you who are here today may already know, but how you can tell and kind of self-diagnose if poor frontline communication is a problem, a business problem in your organization. Because remember, we as communication professionals are in the business of solving business problems, right? Not actually communication problems. That's how we do it. So here are the business problems that you want to be looking for that will tell you whether this is something that you want to address quite quickly. First thing is to look at your talent pipeline and the talent economics, right? Talent recruitment, retention, performance, and safety. If any of these are ongoing issues in your business, you very likely have a problem with the way you're communicating with and engaging your frontline workers. The second thing to keep an eye out for is our business transformation, change programs, other strategic initiatives that are super important to the C-suite. Are they missing critical milestones? Are they meeting their targets? Are delivering on the strategy? Because if they're not, again, we can go back to there's very likely a disconnect in the way those frontline workers understand what they're being asked to do in terms of delivering those big picture strategies and their ability and willingness to do them effectively. And the third thing to look for is those customer and patient satisfaction outcomes, those metrics, or product quality. right? Which in a product business is sort of the equivalent of service delivery, and of like an NPS score, or patient satisfaction. If any of those are suffering or not where you want them to be, with you've got to disconnect with how you're engaging with your frontline line. Can you hear me? I've just got a notification saying that the audio was out.
You're back to normal. It just kind of
Oh,
blinked out for a second, but we're back. We're good.
all right, well, here we go. Okay, so that's how you can tell whether this is something you want to look at. Now, I want to just touch down on some of the research that we did so that I can share some of these actionable strategies with you. So, the first thing is we interviewed at Dewpoint Communications communication leaders representing more than 1 million global workers to find out how we and they could help crack that frontline code. And we talked to people in more than 18 industries and sectors. And if you look at this list, I would be hard pressed to believe that anyone on this call doesn't fit into one of these kinds of organizations. So everything from agriculture, construction, home and healthcare, biotech manufacturing, all kinds of manufacturing, oil and gas, nonprofits, utilities, travel and transportation, energy, education, construction, consumer and commercial services, government, food and beverage manufacturing. So all different kinds of organizations we looked at. And I'll tell you now a little bit about what we found. So there were three big themes that emerged in our research, and there are some big clues in here about how we can do better. Not surprisingly, a lot of them came down to how we're using or not using technology to effectively reach our frontline workers. So the one thing we heard was that technology remains a pervasive challenge. Right. Somehow, even though we have great apps, we have great platforms, and there are some really powerful platforms and tech solutions in the market, like Toby's going to tell us about in a little bit, somehow we're just not always leveraging what's available to us. We also heard that many companies are still relying on one-way channels. I heard words like we will blast out messages, or we'll cascade information, or we'll disseminate the strategy, and very reliance on push communication, not on two-way symmetrical communication, which we as communication professionals know is best practice and is becoming increasingly important. I mentioned, think again, all these new workers coming into skilled trades, going through those skilled trade training programs, they are expecting to be listened to, heard, and responded, right? Not have messages blasted at them. We also heard that AI can be a game changer. We can all see the future, but as many of us across, whether we work with desk-based workers or deskless workers, we know that AI is something that we're wrapping our arms around and really looking at how we can take how we can really leverage it most powerfully. We're not there yet, but we're getting there quickly. I want to remind you too, and I think we can put the link to this in the chat. There's a lot more detail on this in the report as well. So if you want to put the link to that in the chat, Toby, people are very welcome to download it. Again, we're kind of just skimming the surface here today because these are some of three of the biggest themes, but there's a lot more in there that we can dive into. And again, I know we're going to have time for questions and answers. And I'm also always happy to chat about this anytime. So please feel free to reach out to me directly, connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay, so we've talked about some of the tech challenges, and because we do need these powerful channels in order to reach our frontline and deskless workers. However, that's not enough. We also need to take a human-centered approach that builds trust with our workforce. And that's what I'm going to kind of talk about in these real-world strategies, how to kind of unpack that a little bit, because as we know, it is not just we can't abdicate people problems to tech solutions alone. We really are looking for where we can create that hybrid solution. Again, this is why I think that the role of the internal employee communication professional is only becoming more important in this era. So I want to start with first strategy. One is to focus on cross-functional collaboration. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So first of all, don't try to do all this alone. This is not just a comms problem. And especially as we see more and more teams disrupted, we're looking at a convergence of functions. So think about it, and think about especially when we look at it through the lens of, for example, deploying a new internet or app or tech solution. You've got to be collaborating with your IT partners, your ops partners, your HR partners, your safety leaders, your site leaders, the C-suite. We're really looking at how we can harness the collective superpowers of all of these corporate functions in order to not only, when we're looking at tech solutions, but in terms of listening, and really making sure that everything that we develop when it comes to communication and engagement is fit for purpose. So if you think about it, our frontline workers are deeply embedded in every part of the business. That means you need those allies and partners, for example, your site leaders, to be able to help you understand what's going on with them on a day-to-day basis, what's urgent, what's top of mind. I love this quote from a report. Our safety team is one of our most important partnerships, and we're grateful that we've got these great folks at the helm who want to work closely together. Toby, I wanted to ask you, I feel like you had a great example that would be helpful to share at this juncture.
Yeah. Thanks, Victoria. I think, well, I just totally agree with everything that you've said so far. And just I see it. I see it in the work I do with our customers. But yeah, I have a story I wanted to share. We did actually a webinar with a customer last year. They're called Lexicon, and they do steel manufacturing construction. They're a really amazing organization, and they really see a challenge across their industry, but it's in particular in their business around mental health. And in fact, I'm sure many of you have heard about, the incidences of suicide in the construction industry being higher than most other industries. And so the company itself, they're amazing. They already value wellness as a priority and sharing that with their employees, but they in particular wanted to focus in on mental health. So they do a campaign every August to really dive into this topic. And what strikes me when it comes to the cross-functional collaboration piece about it is that, actually started with an idea from the CEO. He's actually the one that said, like, we need an app to communicate with our frontline teams. But they said, like, what can we do? What can we actually do to dive in? So they created a committee, and that committee has representation from their people team, from L&D, from their wellness group, of course, but those site leaders, right? Those operational folks that are on the ground. And it's really tremendous how they also incorporate. So they're building the program with the input of those folks, and then they're soliciting participation from frontline team members in that campaign as well. So it's kind of a really specific example, but I think if you look at that and you look at choosing a problem you're facing as a business and asking a team to solve it, it starts to build a muscle where you can start attacking more problems cross-functionally as a company. So I just wanted to share that one. Again, I encourage folks, if you have an example of how you have found good ways to collaborate cross-functionally, please share in the chat. Or if you're struggling with it, maybe pop a question in for us to address as well. So I invite you all to share that as well.
I love that. One example that we heard in our updated research is an organization that has trained. So they, of course, not every, we won't always have a comms person on every site, but they do have an HR representative on every site at every site, and they've trained those HR partners in some really essential communication skills, right?
Mm.
So that they can be not only the eyes and ears and that listening post on site, but also that they can create very localized, specific and relevant communications that are for that site. So by us, for us. So
I
through
love
that
that.
partnership, right, they're able to kind of be greater than the sum of their parts. And I think that's such a great example of, sometimes we think that comms people are the only people that can do comms. And I think as we look into this new world, we know that that's not a practical solution anymore, and so getting creative about how we solve these problems. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
that's great.
I wanted to share another strategy that I think actually just dovetails so perfectly with what you were saying, Toby. Second strategy is to prioritize listening. And because this helps people have greater trust when they feel heard. I don't think we have to look very far to know that trust is maybe one of the our most precious natural resources these days, right? It's at an all-time low. We can look at the Edelman Trust Barometer. We know that we live in this sort of deeply cynical age, and that people don't know how to trust. People genuinely want to trust their employers, right? They in an age where it's hard to trust other, the media or government, or if you think, if people feel they're not quite sure who has their back, employees really want to believe that their employer is trustworthy and can kind of contextualize the world for them and help them understand what this things external forces mean for them, right? So if we know that trust signals are some of the most precious things we can be communicating, then we also know that listening becomes paramount. So we're fortunate in this age of where we have these great digital channels, where we can have better feedback, and that we can balance that with in real life connection for a more nuanced understanding. But we can get a lot of great data and a lot of great signals about what's important so that we can respond appropriately. So two-way symmetrical communication has never been easier. And if you are thinking to yourself, as I say that, it doesn't feel easy because we don't have a way to really listen, or we're not really equipped or resourced to do this, I have a suggestion for you later, so we'll get there. Um, so thinking about how we go about listening, we can do this on an ongoing basis, but also there are some sort of more programmatic pieces that we can do. We can conduct an audit and do employee consultation as part of that audit to understand our current state so that we can design our future state. We can do stakeholder interviews. We can do quick pulse interviews. So for example, if you're out on a site, visiting a site, or a retail location, or a hospital, having those just one-on-one hallway conversations, site-based conversations with people that we're trying to connect with, and listening to them that way, that actually, even in a sort of ad hoc way, can be really powerful. So we're looking for anything we can do to connect, to get the not only information, but the insights that we need. My hot tip here is that an annual engagement survey is not going to give you the insight that you need. It's retrospective. If you think about something that happened 6 months ago, you kind of have to imagine it's like an engagement survey is kind of like a message in a bottle, right? They write something and they send it out in the sea, and maybe someday someone hears it. But whatever it is that they put on that message in the bottle, that sentiment has long since passed. So, and I know that it can be challenging, but I would really encourage people to look beyond an annual engagement survey. And if you have questions about how to help your stakeholders, your C-suite, to come around to that way of thinking, please do reach out to me, because I have some ideas I could share with you. In every organization, though, there's a way into this. So think about wherever you are, wherever you're starting from, think about what will be the most effective way to listen for you. So some things that we've heard in our research and that are quite powerful are just ask me anything sessions with a senior leader, where employees can come and just ask the questions that they have. I like the idea of a two-way ask me anything, in that a small group, or like a leadership listening circle, where the employees might ask a leader a question about what's going on, and the leader may ask them a question about what's going on in their day-to-day, where are they getting stuck, and you go back and forth and trade off asking questions, which we know is actually called a conversation, right, or a dialogue. And again, two-way symmetrical communication. Ride-alongs are also a powerful tool. If you have folks, for example, home health care, right? Visiting nurses, delivery, people who are on the road a lot, anything where they may be in their vehicle a lot, and the time to spend for the listening is actually when they are, when they have a little bit of headspace to talk. Think about whatever, obviously, as long as they're doing that safely, whatever works in your organization. So get creative about what that looks like. I love this quote from our research. It's critical to take that reporter mentality. None of the stories that you're looking for are sitting in the newsroom. You've got to get out to where the people are. You are not going to make connections sitting alone at your desk. Okay. Toby, I feel like you had an idea there, a case study that you thought might just really punctuate this.
Yes, yes, I do. We work with a logistics company. They're 15,000 employees across the U.S. They are working in warehouses, doing the picking and packing, getting supplies delivered to people that they've ordered. And they launched their employee app and digital signage a couple of years ago, which were absolutely focused on reaching frontline. And they've done really well. They have an internal communications team, but as you know, as you said, it's small team, big group to reach. So in addition to all the work they did with change management and launching it, over the couple of years, we've actually gone out, and I've been able to join, as well as some other colleagues, and join them on site, where we go and we just help. We go to the break room and we help. Hey, is anybody having trouble getting in the app? We try to chat with them. We find the pain points, right, and find also opportunities. And we had the awesome experience recently where we were on site, we were chatting through, I was showing them some new cool things coming, and I was able to help give them some solutions to problems that they were able to raise that we just wouldn't have uncovered them, right? Like, yes, we already were doing some webinars or sharing information, but it's that chance to just talk. And we unsurfaced, we uncovered a couple of other things that was just spontaneous, on the spot, walking around talking to people that we're going to work on addressing together. So that communications team is small but mighty, but getting out there, there's just nothing that beats it, right? So highly recommend it. I know, not everybody's that big, not everybody's is, and there's companies that are quite large, but you can do it. It doesn't have to be, to boil the ocean at once. Just bite off wherever you see those opportunities. Talk to people out on the front line. Yeah.
There's another quote in the report that I love that says, and I asked them this question, and when I was interviewing this person, I said, what would you say to someone who says that they don't have time to get out on the front line to talk to people because they're so busy in their office doing stuff, like,
Yeah.
and they looked at me and they said, you don't have time not to. Like, they're the front line. This is it. Like, that's the coal face. Like, this is it. You don't have time not to.
I love that. They are the majority, right? So it's like,
These
what are
are
you
your
doing?
people,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? It's so, I mean, I spent most of my career being in-house, and it's like, I get it. And I also always think there's kind of that like Aaron Brockovich thing too, like where if you're out there talking to people, then someone might note, like, be like, well, where are they? They're never at their desk, and you're like, and I always
Right.
think about that when you're actually out there, sometimes doing the most important work. There's
Yes.
always this chance. You always feel like someone's going to think you're not doing anything, and I think that's unfortunate as well. Toby, you mentioned digital signage, and oh, I could do an entire webinar on digital signage. I think digital signage, and this comes up in the report again and again, digital signage is one of the most overlooked and biggest opportunities. We have there's such great tech solutions for it. It's
Yeah.
literally a billboard that
Right.
you own, right?
Yeah.
So
And a lot of times it doesn't have to be a whole extra thing, right? Like I know for example, a lot of our customers have they actually just take it so that they can post to their employee app, but it also posts to the signage, right? So just amplifying, reaching people where they are. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Um, okay, the last strategy I wanted to share is assume that the technology you need is table stakes. And here's what I mean by that. We talk to a lot of organizations, and when we work with clients, listen, if anyone, I hope everyone's sitting down, right? and who doesn't have an app, doesn't have a platform, feels like the tech piece, like they don't have a good tech solution to reach their front line. We work with clients all the time for whom this is the case. You are not alone. Sometimes, like AI, we feel like everyone else has got this figured out. I promise you, not everyone has this figured out. Don't worry. We just start where we are and keep going, and that's fine. What I want to say about this is that there's a really great Gartner research that says by 2028, which if you haven't noticed is like super soon, 75% of employees will rely on chatbots to obtain relevant internal communications. So one way or another, we know that this technology is coming, and it may feel like it's taking us forever to get there. However, and again, if you need, one of the things we love doing is helping comms teams make the business case, creates working groups, like create the RFPs, right? Like look at, like, get all the pieces, do the employee consultation, work with their C-suite to make the business case so that when they're ready, if they need that solution, they, it's easier to get it. My point I want to really make here and emphasize is we can see in the future with our crystal ball, the technology is there. We are moving towards it. AI, it's there in the future. So I would recommend is that even if you're not there yet, you don't have this yet, start hardwiring that approach to how you communicate and connect with your frontline workers into your thinking, right? So it's kind of like skate to where the puck is going, not to where it's been. We are really at this tipping point. And to be your future ready comm strategy, it must balance analog and digital engagement. Even if you feel like at the moment you're very heavily dependent on analog, that's fine. But just keep in mind that one way or another, by 2028 or thereabouts, we'll be in a dramatically different place, right? Even if we have to drag the business kicking and screaming into the future with us, this is happening. We are absolutely at this tipping point in all of our research that we've done and that we cite in our report. It's clear as day, this is what is happening. So also consider how you'll use AI to help you customize, scale, and sequence those two-way symmetrical communications. One of the things we heard a lot in the research was the scale of, like, the segmentation and the customization felt so overwhelming. There's so many different kinds of frontline workers on different sites and different geographies with different roles that it felt like just a massive undertaking. So even if you don't have agents built for everything to do that and customize that, sequence it, get that real-time reporting and feedback, we know that this is coming. So really start planning for that future. Toby, is there something you wanted to add here to kind of help bring that home?
Yeah, I think, I want to reiterate what you said is that we're all at different places in the journey. And I see this all the time. And there are still a lot of companies, just like you said, really starting from square one. We still have bulletin boards. We still have leader cascading, as you were mentioning earlier. And it's not to say that you can't continue, but you have to start leaning in and learning and jumping on this train. I think what we're seeing across our customers is it's varied. It's a lot about making sure your frontline team members, if you can, point them to one place to start all the time. That's what a lot of our customers are doing, are looking to integrate so that they could just go to their app, but it can be the jumping point to other tools that they need to get access to. It could be that tie-in, like we talked about, to your digital signage so that you are hitting the people that never are going to put the app on a phone, and that's fine. But the other piece is, lean into, I don't think there probably is a technology vendor you're working with that isn't looking at this. So learn from them, learn along with them, and look at the features that they're using. We already have a lot of customers who have a knowledge base that they're building up of, I have frontline team members, they need an answer quick. So we're putting the answers into a knowledge base so they can find them. So for example, in our case, we have the AI assistant, so they can just let that person quickly ask the question and get the answer. And that has saved the employee time, and it is saving that frontline leader time from having to answer the same questions every day. So it's just a matter of figure out where you're at, but also look to help. Companies like Dewpoint Communications can help. Look at the experts who are already ahead of you, and also talk to your fellow. Communication. I know a lot of communicators are in a team of one or very small. So look to your organizations that compare notes with your colleagues as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. I'm watching the clock and I want to make sure we have time for questions and answers too. So I want to just bring us home with a couple of things here. One, to kind of pull this together, I want to offer you a common kind of common sense, three-step approach to how to harness the power of the front line. So one, just start where you are. Optimize your existing resources from whatever you got in your tech stack. Toby mentioned bulletin boards, and I think don't knock the humble bulletin board. We had a client once who was in the education space, and man, no one that makes a bulletin board like teachers. Like so bulletin boards are still a very valid communication channel, as are newsletters. Right? Take what you have, just make what's already in place work smarter for you. The next thing I would offer is to then, based on what you learn from that, plan for some of those strategic investments. Again, it's coming, it's happening. You have to get you want to get yourself and your team ready to be able to move into this tech-enabled future really powerfully. So start to research and develop the business cases. We love helping teams create the business case. We've got great metrics on what works, and start to think about what those future ready tools are, the skill sets that your team is going to need, so that you can skate to where that puck is going. And the third thing I would offer is to just always prioritize the people and relationships. You'll get there faster by increasing your influence and impact, right? So building and maintaining those interpersonal networks and the infrastructure that support connection. There's a lot of great things that AI can do, but that in real life, human connection is still really powerful. It's something that we as communication leaders happen to excel at. All right, we've covered a lot of ground. And so before we do Q&A, I want to just recap really quickly. Number one, in case you missed any piece of this, the whistle stop tour is frontline disconnect is expensive and it's getting worse. The status quo is not an option. We are at a tipping point. Something has to change. Focus on that tech-enabled human connection, balancing that analog and digital. Start wherever you are. It's fine. And then start to make a smart, sustainable plan for how you'll move forward. Ask good questions like we're going to move to right now in Q&A, and reach out if you need help. Reach out to me, reach out to Toby and the team at Speak App, and just kind of get the support. You're not in this alone. No one can do it alone. And we're really glad that you are here with us today. So we're going to move to Q&A and discussion. There's a QR code there, but I know also Toby will pop if you want to download the report, Toby will pop the link to that in the chat. And then here's me. Happy to chat anytime. Email me, connect with me on LinkedIn. And I hope we have got some Q&A. I'm gonna change so I can actually see the chat.
Yeah, no worries. We do have one question that came in,
Yeah.
Victoria. Do you see a lot of friction from frontline employees adopting AI in the workplace? So the people that have gotten some AI out there in front of their frontline workers, have you seen any results yet?
Yeah, I will say that, great question. Frontline adopting AI in the workplace. So how they're using it, I will say that the main thing is still the same rule of thumb as it has always been, is the what's in it for me. We don't see resistance in, like, when it's useful, relevant, and feels like care, that someone cared enough to consult them and then create a tool for them. So for example, chatbots, that quote about the Gartner research about like how chatbots are going to replace internal communications, and it makes it sound like that's just going to be it. I don't think that's the case. I think there will be a lot of that operational information that we'll be able to get through chatbots, and that makes sense, right? We have a client, they built their own chatbot and it pulls from Workday, right? And so there will be a lot that you can do in terms of the things that are those repetitive questions and information that we spend a lot of time doing now. It's going to free us up for to really spend more time on the bigger pictures, human pieces, and helping to create context and meaning for people, not just information, right? Insight.
Right.
There's plenty of information in the world. People need insight.
Yeah. I have one more question, and then I'm sure we need to wrap up here. But you mentioned early on about what you found in the reporting is that that there is a lot of technology out there, but that doesn't mean that people are adopting it. And I'm curious if you feel, and even looking forward to the new solutions we need to put in place, do you feel like it could be partly that change communication and change programs to help people get through these hurdles is part of that, or not? I'm curious your take on that.
It is really the result of a historical. It's like the technology is here. That's why I'm so pleased to be here with you. There are great platforms. There's great technology. The business has taken a beat to catch up. If we think about AI and how fast AI has moved, this is what I mean is like we're not far off this tipping point, even from where we were a year ago when we first started this research. It's massively different now.
Yeah.
You won't hear a lot of companies that don't know that they need a tech solution, even if they don't necessarily know how to do it. So it is just that we're playing catch up, but we are so close to just a massive breakthrough.
Yeah. Yeah, and consumer ready tools are there. So I think that when you start to see that at work too, it becomes easier to adopt and people will take it on more. I agree.
Absolutely.
Victoria, this has been very fantastic, full of nuggets of useful information. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing the report. The link to Dewpoint Communications and the resources page with the report is in the chat, and we will include it in the email follow up to everyone as well. So,
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun. I hope this has been helpful. Please feel free to reach out if there's any questions that we didn't have a chance to answer today.
yes, thanks, Victoria. Thanks everyone for joining, and yeah, feel free to reach out to me or to Speak Up if you have any follow ups as well.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, take care.